This lesson is on factoring polynomials, so we're going to be taking trinomials and factoring them into two different expressions in parentheses. The first is in form ax squared plus bx plus c when a equals 1. And what we're going to do is find factors of c that add up to equal b. So two numbers that multiply to make c, but we can add them together to get b, and then we'll write each factor in a set of parentheses. So looking at example 1, I'm going to be looking at 24, and I'm going to be looking at the factors of 24 that will add up to give me 10. So I have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. Well, when I add them together, 4 and 6 equal 10. So this is going to be x plus 4 and x plus 6. And if I were to FOIL that, it would end up giving me x squared plus 10x plus 24. In example 2, I'm looking at negative 32. So I need numbers that are going to multiply to give me negative 32. So that would be 1 and negative 32, 2 and negative 16, 4 and negative 8, or I could reverse it and do negative 1 positive 32, negative 2 positive 16, negative 4 positive 8. And I have to look and see which one is going to add up to give me positive 4. And that's going to be negative 4 and positive 8. So this will factor into x minus 4 and x plus 8. Now I want you to try the third one on your own, and then we will go over it. Going over example 3, c is negative 12. So I've got 1 and negative 12, 2 and negative 6, 3 and negative 4, or negative 1 and 12, negative 2 and positive 6, or negative 3 and positive 4. And I want factors that are going to add up to equal negative 1. So that's going to be positive 3 and negative 4. So this should have been x plus 3, x minus 4. Next, we're going to talk about what we do when we have ax squared plus bx plus c when a is greater than 1. The first thing we have to do is multiply a by c, and we're going to find factors of that product that add up to equal b, rewrite and group the polynomial, factor each group, and write each factor in parentheses. So looking at example 4, I'm going to multiply a by c, and that gives me positive 30. My factors of 30 are 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. And I want something that's going to add together to give me 13, which is going to be 3 and 10. So I'm going to rewrite that as 2x squared plus 3x plus 10x plus 15. And I'm actually going to rewrite that as 2x squared plus 10x plus 3x plus 15 so that I have some common factors grouped together. So when I group them, I'm going to group them with two terms in each group and factor. So in the first set, I can factor out a 2x, and I'll have left x plus 5. And in the second set, I can factor out a positive 3, and I'll have x plus 5. You'll notice that the term inside parentheses repeats itself. Here is two different terms. I have 2x plus 3 and x plus 5. You'll only use the repeated term one time. All right, looking at example 5, I'm going to multiply a by c, and that gives me negative 40. So when I look at my terms, I have 1 and negative 40, 2 and negative 20, 4 and negative 10, 5 and negative 8, or I can flip them around. Negative 1 and 40, negative 2 and 20, negative 4 and 10, or negative 5 and 8. And I want something that's going to add up to give me positive 3. So that's going to be negative 5 and 8. So that's 10x squared minus 5x plus 8x minus 4. And I wrote them in that order because I know that 10 and 5 share a factor, and so do 8 and 4. I'm going to group these. In the first set, I can pull out 5x, and I'll be left with 2x minus 1. And in the second set, I can pull out a positive 4, and I'll be left with 2x minus 1. So my factors then will be 5x plus 4 and 2x minus 1. Now I want you to try example 6 on your own, and we will go over it. All right, looking at example 6, my first step is to multiply a by c, and that's going to be 36. So my terms here, my factors are going to be 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9. And I want something that's going to add to, or I could multiply two negative numbers. So negative 1, negative 36, negative 2, negative 18, negative 3, negative 12, negative 4, negative 9. And I want something that's going to add together to give me negative 13. So that's going to be negative 4 and negative 9. So I have 6x squared minus 9x minus 4x plus 6. And when I group them together, in the first set, I can pull out a 3x. I'm left with 2x minus 3. In the second set, I'm going to pull out a negative 2, and I have 2x minus 3. And the reason I pulled out that negative 2 is because I need these to match. So my factors are going to be 3x minus 2 and 2x minus 3. The last thing we're going to talk about is factoring out a greatest common factor before we factor an expression. So we're going to find a GCF, or a number that all terms can be divided by, and we're going to factor the remaining trinomial using either of the first two methods. So in example 7, I noticed that I have 3x squared minus 12x minus 63, and I know that I can factor out a 3 from that, and that turns into x squared minus 4x minus 21. And now I'm going to factor that remaining trinomial. So I have negative 21, and I have to find factors of that will add to be negative 4. So I've got negative 1 and 21, negative 3 and 7, or 1 and negative 21, and 3 and negative 7. When I look at that, I know 3 and negative 7 will give me negative 4 when I add them up. So my final factored expression will be 3 times x plus 3 times x minus 7. In example 8, I know that out of all of those, I can pull out a 2, and I'm going to have 4x squared minus 15x minus 4. Now I can look at C is negative 4. So this looks unfactorable, but then I have to remember that my A is greater than 1. So I'm going to have to multiply A and C. So when I multiply 4 by negative 4, I get negative 16. So my terms of negative 16 are 1 and negative 16, 2 and negative 8, 4 and negative 4. Or I could flip it around and have -1 and +16, or -2 and +8. I need something that's going to add together to give me -15. So that's going to be 1 and -16. So then I've got 2 times 4x squared minus 16x plus x minus 4. I'm going to group this, and I'm going to factor out here a 4x. Here I'm going to factor out a +1. And my repeated factor is x minus 4, so I'll have 2 times 4x plus 1 times x minus 4 as my final answer. Now I want you to try example 9 on your own, and then we'll go over it. Going over example 9, when I look at these, they don't share any factors, but I don't want my a to be negative. So what I'm going to do is pull out a -1, and I'm left with 2x squared plus 15x minus 27. When I pull out a -1, I have to make sure that I am switching the sign of everything on the inside. Now what I can do is factor this out. However, this is not factorable, so I'm going to do a times c, which is going to give me -54. And my terms are 1 and 54. I'm sorry, -54, 2 and -27, 3 and -18, or 6 and -9. Or I can flip them around and do -1 and 54, -2 and 27, -3 and 18, and -6 and +9. And I need something that's going to give me +15, so that's going to be 18 and -3. So when I rewrite this, it's going to be 2x squared plus 18x minus 3x minus 27. And then I can group and factor. So I've got a group here, a group here. So that will be 2x and x plus 9. Pull out a -3 over here, and x plus 9. So I'm going to pull down my -1. My factors are 2x minus 3 and x plus 9.